And greetings. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is Tuesday. Here we go with the voice again. Tuesday, September the 19th. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope everybody's doing good. Hope gaming is going well for people. We are happy to be back today with another episode of my reviews of 10 for the Chairman. And I began doing this little project just to give a little precursor to why I'm doing a show that was out 10 years ago. Hey, Eminence, good to see you. Talk like a pirate day. Arr! Good to see you, man. Again, I'm doing these reviews of 10 for the Chairman from based on conversations I've had with players and backers of Star Citizen. Some of them are people who've been around for a little bit. Some of them are people who are brand new to the project. And I decided to go over these because quite often I've had conversations, or I've heard conversations where people talk about things in Star Citizen, in the game itself, the current game. And a lot of times they have questions. A lot of times they have fixes, ideas for things, how the game can be better, what could be done better in the game, or boy, I wish they would add this, or boy, I wish they would do this, or why haven't they done this, or why don't they do that? And so I said, the more I've heard this, I realize that there's just a lot of people out there who don't know what the plans are for the development of Star Citizen. And many of their concerns, many of their issues, many of the problems they have already been discussed, have been examined, have been talked about, and considered. And so I decided to go through these episodes so that people could see that maybe some of the things that they've got concerns about, CIG does have it in their plan to address them and hopefully be able to implement them in the game as the project continues. And it's understandable how some things could be like not known about, because a lot of these ideas literally came up 10 years ago. The episodes we're watching now are from 2014. We've gone from 2013 to 2014. And there are some things here that, like, for example, something like Death of a Spaceman, the way we die and come back into the game, was discussed literally 9 years ago, but just was implemented only within the past few years. And so, and even now, it's still not completely where it's supposed to be. We probably about maybe 85% of Death of a Spaceman, the idea of how we come back and how many times we can come back, has not been implemented. So some people are going to come into the game thinking that the way you come back in the game right now is the way it's going to be later. And they're going to find out, nope, this is not the end of that boat trip. So that's why we're doing these shows. That's why we're going over these episodes, so that people can also get an idea of the vision that Chris Roberts has for the game. So without further ado, I know I put into the title the episodes 14, 15, and 16. Those of you who may have gotten it in Twitter may have saw 13, 14, and 15. That was because I forgot to change the numbers. So we are starting with episode 14 today. So let's jump into it. I've got this on episode 17 for some reason. Why does that say episode 17? Oh my God. Give me 1 second here, gang. That shouldn't be there. This should be here. So that's episode 14, episode 15. Okay, yeah, I think I got it right now. I don't know why I got it all backwards there. Sorry about that. But anyway, I really appreciate you guys joining me today on a Tuesday. Let's go ahead and get ready to jump into it, and we can talk about it. Don't forget, there's a link in my page there on Twitch that you can click on if you want to come in and share a comment or something about what we're watching or something that I say. You're always welcome to do that on my show. So let's go ahead and hop into it here.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. For those that you haven't watched this before, it's where I take 10 questions from subscribers and answer them as best I can. For those of you that don't know, subscribers are the subset of the overall backers of Star Citizen that are kicking in extra money every month to allow us to do additional community outreach.
Hey, Captain Jones, good to see you, man.
Questions, doing Wingman's Hangar, doing Jump Point, and a bunch of the behind-the-scenes stuff that helps inform everyone out there in the community what we're up to. So thank you all to subscribers, and of course thank you to backers for just enabling us to be making the game of our dreams. So first of the 10 questions comes from McKeeve D, who asks, how is your sound studio developing and what are your plans? Have you heard of real-time voice porting? Good sound is an essential part of the gaming experience. Could you please present or say something about your plans? So on the sound studio front, we're going to be building a small sound studio in the new Austin offices. Plus, we're actually expanding into a additional space here in Los Angeles, and the space we're expanding into already has a built-in sound booth and room that we'll be taking into our office. So we'll have the ability to record actors' voice for VO and stuff, and do sound balancing here and in Austin, and we'll make sure they're both connected. We have actual gigabyte internet of fiber now running from here to Austin, so we'll be able to do a fair amount of that. I actually haven't heard of real-time voice porting, so I guess I'll go and Google it and find out what it is. Could be you're in Austin and you've got an actor in Los Angeles, and you're basically directing your VO long distance, but which we will have those abilities to do in our stages. But yeah, we're going to have a full-featured sort of sound setup here, and sound's an important part of the game. So we're really sort of focusing on quite a few things. One, we're going to be enhancing the sound system inside Star Citizen, so we're going to make a move to WYs from Fmod, which will just it just has some more real-time filters and plugins that are good for the sound guys. The sound guys like to use it for the sound editing, and we're really working hard on how to make a realistic soundscape, and also we're going to have some great dynamic music. So anyway, we're pretty focused on the sound, although you haven't really appreciated it yet, but you will be seeing it down the road. Okay, next question.
Okay, so again, they're talking about sound, and people are just having some concerns about whether, sound's important, basically what this person says, and what are you guys going to do in relation to building sound? It's funny, this is one of those areas in the development that I think that it's easy not to think about, because we get so caught up in the visuals and sound effects per se. But there's still a lot of voice work that has to be done for characters. There's all of the other, there's just tons and tons of everything from Foley, which is sound effects, footsteps, doors, elevators, things of that nature, engines. If some of you remember back in the early days when CIG first gave us the Arena Commander, this is before we got down to having Area 18 or any of that stuff. And you remember the sound of, both the sound of ships. Ships always sounded kind of okay, right? They weren't bad, and they weren't as distinctive as they are a lot now. Like right now, you could tell when you get a Drake ship versus a Misk ship versus an Origin ship. You can tell the differences, right? But back then, the engines, the ships didn't bother you too much. But what really did bother people in the community was the sound of weapons. People felt weapons were so weak, and they were. And I remember this because Elite Dangerous had come out, and Elite's ADR and sound was like great. I mean, their stuff had a lot of bottom to it, a lot of boom and heft, and when you fired a gun, you felt like almost like the vibration going on. And in Star Citizen's Arena, it was horrible. It was like in a tin can or something. I don't know. It wasn't that great. I mean, at first it seemed good, but then when you started comparing it to games that were polished, it sounded really horrible. CIG has definitely stepped up their ADR, all their sound effects sound really, really good. You don't ever hear anybody talk too much like about, oh, the guns don't sound that great or don't sound that real or whatever. I mean, wheel traction, all this stuff sounds really good. And last year they did an episode where they went back and showed us Foley, which was really a cool episode. It was a different type of thing. You guys remember they were going into garages and doing recordings and doing all types of cool stuff, similar to what we see done in motion pictures. I mean, it's the same type of stuff that's done, but post-production stuff that's added to the game to make it more realistic. So anybody will tell you in film that sound is 50% of what you see on the screen, and I believe it's the same way in games. I was in the game yesterday running through the hangar, and the footsteps sound wasn't there. And it felt so weird. It felt like I was just floating on air. I'm so used to hearing my boots clank on the hangar floor. Wasn't there. So sound is important. Definitely an important thing here.
Comes from Bryn. who asks, with so many high-value accounts existing well before the game is released, would you consider supporting security hardware such as RSA, Secure ID Authenticator, or other such two-step verification methods? Well, I don't. That's a good question. That's not so much what I focus on. John Erskine, who's sort of head of all our online operations and sort of digital publishing, is and he works closely with Turbulent, and together they've sort of been working with Jason Spangler, our CTO, say Secure ID Authenticator or other such.
I had something come through and I didn't get to read this. Okay.
Two-step verification methods.
I missed that. Sorry, guys.
Well, I don't. That's a good question.
Hey,
that's not so much what I focus on. John Erskine, who's sort of head of all our online operations and sort of digital publishing.
Oh, don't worry. I was in the background, buddy.
And he works closely with Turbulent, and together they've sort of been working with Jason Spangler, our CTO, on our sort of digital platform. So we're always looking at various ways to increase our security and thinking ahead of the game of like when it becomes, a bigger game than it is now with a lot more people, and the case of fraud or stealing in accounts, because we've been lucky, we really haven't had much of that so far, but as you become bigger, it always happens. Luckily, we've got some people that have had experience at that. John actually came to us from NC Soft, and before that he was at Origin, where he was working on Ultima Online. So he's actually had a lot of sort of big online MMO experience. So we're thinking about it, but we don't have anything firm to say yet, but that's definitely in our plans. Okay, next question.
So back in the early days, there was no authentication. You guys will remember that. You just kind of logged in, and eventually they did implement it, because there was a period of time where there were people trying to hack into accounts. It got kind of prevalent for a little while that it was happening, and they would send out emails telling us to make sure you had a password and all this. Then some of you remember that RSI actually put out their own authenticator for a while. It was its own app. You would use it to log in if you were using the two-step authentication. And then I think they stopped it because now you're using Google's authenticator to do it. I tried to use the RSI, it wouldn't work for some reason. I don't know if it was bugged or they stopped. Maybe they stopped it for financial reasons, or I don't know, to run their own app. Maybe it was cheaper to lease it out through a third-party company like Google, which was much more universal, because if people didn't know that they had to get the RSI authenticator, you wouldn't know how to get in. And so anyway, to make a long story short, we do know that we've got two-step authentication now at this point. Yeah, I agree, Glade. Sometimes it's frustrating because even the mode that they have where you go into your account and copy, the numbers, they'll give you like 12 numbers or 10 numbers and you can copy and you just use the next one. Even that becomes a pain in the butt, especially if you're not in front of your computer. There've been times when I've been on my cell phone and I literally had to do a screenshot of that page, put it on, store it somewhere. And then once I needed to get into the game, I could go back in and get it. But even that was a pain. Then sometimes if you got locked out of your account, well, then you couldn't get into your account to get the 10 numbers unless you had pre-recorded them ahead of time. So it's, it's kind of one of those things where you got to really build a good pattern in making sure you've got yourself backed up twice. And it makes it a little bit better. Yeah, it is a kicker. Yeah, and like you said, like Stone, we get it for the security, because there were people literally trying to hack people's accounts. And you might say, well, why would somebody hack their account? Well, because if you paid for a ship with cash, you bought it outright, it's giftable. And the issue became later on that people would gift their ships away somewhere to some other account. It was a lot of craziness back then, but you don't really hear that issue too much anymore. So.
Question comes from Rhesus, who asks, will humans be the only playable species upon launch? If so, do you plan on adding additional humanoid species such as the Banu Ajan to be playable? I think as a future add-on, it would work nicely as an expansion pack. Humans are going to be the only playable species upon launch, but we've said this before, we are planning to eventually let you play some of the other races like the Banu Ajan, and that would definitely be a sort of big major content expansion. So our plan is that we're going to have regular content updates, hopefully maybe not weekly, but at least bi-monthly as we go. But then we'll also have some much bigger content updates, which would be, say, another single player campaign like Squadron 42, or the ability to play one of the alien races. So that's all part of our plan, but right now we've got so much just to deliver what we've signed up for that that would be sort of stage 2.
Okay. Oops. I don't want to leave Kristen looking like that. It looks pretty sad. Okay. All right. Okay. The idea of playing as other races. I'm not sure about it. And I'll tell you why. For those of you who ever played Eve is very lore based as far as its universe, right? There are 4 races there. So lore based that each race has its own distinctive, just like in Star Citizen, their own type of ships. I remember when I got into the game, I was ready to jump into it. I'd come out of Star Wars Galaxies. I was ready to get into the lore of the game. I did all this studying, got in there, looked at the ships, and I remember looking at the Amar ships, and I thought Amar ships were the coolest looking design ships in the game. Let's see. Smithy Joe, what's up, buddy? How are you? Thank you for that follow. I used to think Amar ships were the coolest ships in Eve, right? I didn't like any of the other ones. And I struggled with that because I didn't like their lore, because Amarians were into slavery, right? Yeah, you know why I didn't like it, right? But seriously, I just didn't like the whole motif of that being part of their lore, where they were slavers, okay? So I went with another group. The problem I had with that was that when I ran into someone of a different race or a different group, right? If they were Galente and I was Amar, my assumption was if the Amar and the Galente were at war with each other, I would know that that was my enemy, okay? But that wasn't what happened. Players would just get certain ships because of the capability of their ships or because of the aesthetic of the ship. Had nothing to do with the lore. Whoever was flying the Galente ship didn't care about being Galente. They cared about that ship. And so let's say I picked Amar and I saw another person that was Amar. My assumption based around the lore was that this person who's flying an Amar ship is an Amarian, that's what you call them, and that we were on the same side. But no, that was not the case. The person in the Amar ship over there could have cared less about Amar lore, could have cared less about their in an Amar ship. All they cared about was that it was a better ship, and that then I could most likely get attacked. Matter of fact, 9 out of 10 times I would be attacked if that person was in the same type of ship I was in, same race or group of ship that I was in, which made the universe unreal to me. It lost the immersion aspect of it. My concern with Star Citizen is the same. That if people say, I want to play as a Banu, because this game is based on skill and not attributes, in other words, like when you play a D&D game, if you're playing as a dwarf, usually that means you have a lot of strength, right? If you play as an elf, that means you have high intelligence. None of that is in here to dictate what a race has to be or what the constraints are to being in that race. If someone wants to be a Banu, does that mean that they're going to stick to flying Banu ships? No, the players will not do that. There'll be a freaking Banu flying a freaking Idris. That will break immersion for me. If there's Xi'an, they're going to be flying a freaking Caterpillar. You know, that's going to break immersion for me. So I'm concerned about the introduction of races. Don't get me wrong. I would love for players to do that. But the fact that this game is so lore based, if the players step outside of that lore, if I go to Xi'an, but they're still acting like humans and still doing human things, but just in a Xi'an body or just in a Banu body, then it's going to break immersion for me. And so that's my problem with it. I love the idea of people being able to come in and sing not just NPC Banus, but players playing as Banu, but they're not going to take it to the level that for me, as somebody who enjoys the lore and the role play aspects of this game, it will probably break that for me. I've got Admiral Kusanagi who just came in. Hey, Admiral, how are you?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. What are your thoughts about Chris and the question here about playing outside of humans?
So there's a few things. Number one, okay, so I don't. I'll touch base with the ships. We'll start with ships.
Mm-hmm.
And before, I know we talked about recently about, like, you know, we were able to buy the Banu Defender,
Mm-hmm.
but those were kind of like human designed, you know, to fit my structure. Like, I'm not 10 feet tall or 9 feet tall. So I feel like a Banu ship would be bigger overall. So if I bought a Banu defender and I create a Banu character, the question is, are they going to give me a slightly bigger ship that's going to accompany that? And we don't know that.
Right.
There's also areas in the game, both on their side and our side, that don't like other races.
Right.
We have the ones right now in Stanton that don't like aliens. And there are locations. My thing is, like, if I become a Xeon, I want to start the game as a Xeon in a Xeon location that's well thought up and developed and has stuff to do in Xeon territory before I move out.
Right.
So right now we only have access as a human to like a port, like this port. You got one location and there's 50, I think, 50 billion on one of their planets, but you can only go to one place. So if they're going to allow us to be able, they're going to have to expand like where we can land as, being like, there should be a reason to like, hey, you should be this, but there should also be consequences where, like, if you're a Xeon or Banu, you're not welcome there.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point. Good point.
So I think that's the way to offset it. I don't see a Xeon flying a Drake Caterpillar.
Right.
I don't know how they're going to sit in the damn chair.
True.
So
True. Yeah. True.
I think there should be, size issues. There might be oxygen issues and other factors that we're not aware of like what they breathe, to make it more comfortable for them to be a regular ship.
Right.
They might see this lateral cargo supply is absolutely the most ridiculous concept of how to manage cargo. Or if you look at their cargo ships, I think for the Xeon, they're all vertical ships.
Right.
They're like a giant skyscraper, like flying in the space.
Right.
So,
do you think? Let me ask you this because you raised a good point there. Do you think that? And I agree with you. Like, and let's go under the assumption, like Chris said, this would be down the road. So let's say, and I'm just random stuff here because you and I always talk about timelines and development. Let's say that this is 7 years from now, okay, and they're at the point now where we are now actually entering the other systems that are in now are like the Banu system, the Xi'an systems have now been added in. Do you think that if they design those worlds, just like you said, just like they've done human worlds, in where we are right now, if they have actually designed those worlds to fit the physiology, whether it's like you said, atmosphere, do you think that players would be willing to conform to that? Do you think that they would be like, wow, this is so cool playing as something different? Do you think that if they put the guardrails up, that the players would be willing to do that? Or will they just want to have the skin, but they would still try to act out in human ways? Is that making sense what I'm asking?
No, I think it makes sense what you're saying is because a lot of people don't play by lore. They look at it as like, how do I what's the profit in it for me if I say use one of my characters? Let's say I buy a new account and I want to get this, so I'm going to make a giant turtle person and live on a Xeon place and talk to these people. Which another thing is you need to know language a little bit more if you're going to do that. So I think this is going to fit more of those linguists who want to learn Banu, who want to learn Xeon.
Yeah.
And so they're getting the better deals in there as playing that character or even playing human.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, there's definitely the gameplay for people who the want of people who want to get that involved in lore. But I'm not sure if like overall it's going to be like that.
That's a great point. That's a great point you mentioned though, about whether or not they take the attributes even further. For example, let's say if you're playing as a Banu, you get better deals on trade missions, you know what I mean? Or more lucrative deals or whatever, versus if you're Xi'an, if they're implementing crafting into the game, maybe they are able to craft at a different level or create certain things that you just can't make as a human player. I'm saying, are there going to be incentives that CIG could build in to make people literally, like when you play D&D, like I play wizards, but when I play a wizard, I play an elf all the time because I always want the high intelligence. You know what I'm saying? As much as I like playing human, if I'm a paladin, I'll play human because I want that. So I'm saying, do you think CIG could build it out in such a way that if I'm
You know
playing,
what way I want to see it now? Making me think this way because we've already have like the Encyclopedia Britannica and all that stuff like the
uh-huh,
what do they call
the
this? Something
Galactica,
stone.
Galactopedia?
Well, the languages. We have the
Oh, the
languages
languages.
out
Yeah,
right
right,
now.
right, right,
I'm
right, right,
building
right.
them.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a way to get into it and be like, say like all the conversations in there were Xeon, and you had to figure out what the hell you were looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be, but you would get like so much, like the benefit would be huge.
Right.
So to have one of these people in your org, or to know an affiliate
Mm.
who's the type of person, that person would be like top of the
Right.
the food chain.
Right.
If you studied just a little bit of time, put some time and effort into it, and you were able to do that, and you were able to play as a Xeon because you knew the language a bit,
Yeah.
and you could deal with the humans that as they are.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
I wrestle with something. Yeah, Gladestone, I saw your question earlier about certain orgs may only want, and that's true. Because Glade, in the game, that's the same thing like Admiral was mentioning earlier. Xenothreat is totally against aliens. So, obviously you could not be a part of their thing. They don't want to have anything to do with aliens, and vice versa. That type of tension could be a good thing in the game, where some people get along with certain races, other ones don't. And to Admiral's point about if there's enough incentive built into the game, that people may be willing to step into the lore, but I think it has to be, the incentives have to be high. There needs to be guardrails, but the guardrails can't be something that make people feel restricted. Because one of the problems in gaming for me right now, guys, and I know some of y'all are not going to like what I'm about to say, I do not always like this idea when gamers tell people you can do whatever you want. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Because in real life, you can't do whatever you want. And I get the fact that you go into the gaming world with the idea of feeling that way. I think that statement should have way more to do about choice and decisions more than affecting the way the game is played. And to me, it weakens games. I'll give you an example. I know some of y'all gonna hate this, but people will say, and Admiral, you and I have joked around about this before. Oh, when I get my Idris, I'm gonna load it up with computer blades and I'm gonna take it out and go do blah 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 because I can do what I want in the game. That is the dumbest thing in the world. I know some people ain't gonna like it, but I'm
Not a
saying
good
it.
idea.
It is the dumbest thing in the world. Based upon what they've told us about the performance of blades, the value of ships, the possibility of losing your ship, the amount of wait time you'll have when it's destroyed, plus you can't even fire probably the freaking guns from the pilot seat if you're in there by yourself. But anyway, to make a long story short, it's outside of what that ship is designed to do. Now, if people want to be crazy enough to take Idris out there by themselves, hey, have at it, Hoss, it's on you. But that giving people that idea of you can do what you want to do needs to bring some real heavy consequences to it. And my problem, Admiral, is that, like you were saying earlier, if there's enough guardrails there so people don't feel restricted and enough incentives there that people gladly step into that world, like you said, if I learn the language, I'm maybe only 10% of the people in this game or 20% that can actually learn, that know what Xi'an is or can communicate with these people. I mean, it's going to take a lot of work to build that out. But to me, if the incentives are high enough, people may stay within the guidelines of the lore. But if there's no guardrails and if there's no incentives, then people will do just like they did in Eve. Because in Eve, if you could pick whatever race you want to be and do whatever you want to do, but the lore went right out the window. It meant absolutely nothing in the game. And this game is too lore based for people to just take the lore and just throw it out the window. Like you said, can I even fly in UEE space if I'm a this? I mean, there's all types of things that could be cool that they could do, but I don't think it just should be this open whatever. But that's just me.
What you do have though is you have the tech is already there, the lore is already there. They kind of know the locations already. I mean, if you look at the star map, you know what all the locations are. You know what sector holds what. We know there's other Xeon homeworlds. So just say we're using Xeon that we don't even know about because they're very secretive about that. So they could start you in the middle of nowhere. But besides that, it gives them the opportunity to create a new like a game within a game. Because like you said, like the laws could be different. Like your gameplay could be like different, but you'd still be in Star Citizen. You could still go out and join the rest of humanity in space.
Yeah.
But like you start out like in like a completely different like alien game because it's a completely different like economy or social structure or whatever. It would be pretty interesting if they could like evolve that into something like
let me say,
really close to the chest.
Let me say this last thing, and I'm going to move on to the next question. I love your suggestion because I think it's great. I do think that if the systems are built out and the systems are big enough, in other words, to your point, if I pick Xi'an, I wake up in Xi'an space, right? And let's say Xi'an space is, I'm just picking a random number. Let's say Xi'an space is 15 jumps away from human space. Okay, I'm just picking a random number here. There's plenty of stuff in the Xi'an world to do, and there are other people who come in as Xi'an. There may be enough there that keeps me interested to do things in Xi'an space and visit human space versus becoming Xi'an and then just flying straight to human space, if that makes sense. They'd have to build those worlds out enough that if you pick those worlds, if you pick Banu, that's because there's stuff going on in Banu systems and Banu whatever that can keep you occupied. And when you decide to come to human space, you're coming to visit. You know what I mean? You're not coming to, quote unquote, come live in a high rise in Orison. You know what I'm saying? To me, Banu worlds need to be so attractive. They need to be just as attractive. And then players who pick this side to be Banu also inhabit that aspect of the galaxy, right? Just like the Xi'an will inhabit theirs. And when there's conflict or when there's reasons to come over, either it's because of conflict or trade or cargo or something like that, that's cool. But, I'm just, and I'm laughing at what Kai said earlier.
Oh yeah, I was just started laughing.
I was laughing when he said that. And I know, Kai, I'm always Mr. Optimistic and hopeful. Let's just say that, I'm just saying I do struggle with
release it now, get it out now.
I do struggle with players because we have gotten into this free form style of play. And not that everybody has to role play. Believe me, I'm not saying that everybody has to role play because everybody comes to this, particularly Star Citizen, with different things. But for me, role play is immersive. If I get immersion, if I get into the lore, I'm almost brought into the aspect of role play. And I would hope players would do that if we decided to do other races. But that was the question, whether or not they would introduce other races into the game.
I know you're moving on right now, but I just want to finish with, they're like myself. I don't see, they're talking about 100 systems. I really see like maybe there's so much to do. This is unlike Eve and ED. There's so much to do in one system. And I know like Stanton is really filled out with a lot of planets, so maybe that will chop that down a bit. But I really can't see myself moving out of like 4 or 5 systems within a few years.
Yeah. So we've said, to your point, we have said this. What do we think is a satisfactory amount of systems for the game to be in a good space, right? And let's get all the caveats out the way.
I think there should be at least 30 plus. But...
Well, let me say this. The game, let's say all these are caveats, that the game is stable, that the population number, they're able to get the amount of players in that they want to get into the game. Those are the 2 biggest things for an MMO to really function well. And the game features are there, right? All the careers are in and active and locked in. I'm going to be honest with you, 10 systems, I'll take it at 10 systems based on scale, because again, like you said, Stanton's only the size of Stanton is this. Pyro is 2.5 times Stanton. Nyx is 5 times as big as Stanton. So if you give me 10 systems, that's a lot of real estate for us to jump into and be busy as they begin to expand out. 20 systems, definitely big enough. That's what I'm saying. I'm talking about based on scale.
It has to be big enough to keep all the people who want certain types of gameplay happy.
Yeah.
And you have people who want to do a lot of PvP. You have people who just want to like move cargo. So it has to be big enough where they can just kind of intermingle with the NPCs, so that most of the time they're able to do what they can do without dying all the time, and be okay with death of a spaceman or death of a spaceship or however you want to look at it, and just keep on playing the game. Because so if it's 10 systems, cool. It takes 20, then that's something they have to get done.
That'd be a lot. Yeah, Kai says I'd be happy with 5 systems. Yeah, and again, based on scale. Based on scale. And again, I'm putting the caveat in. Features have to be in the game, stability has to be in the game, and a decent population has to be in the game. Okay. Like you said, Admiral, if we can build, because that's one of the difficulties with Elite. You can go in Elite and visit places and stuff, but you couldn't do anything once you found those places. But if we can build settlements, if we can like you said, do trade and cargo. If we can have places to go for sports and activities, 5 to 10 systems, big. That's a lot of scale. That gives people things to do while they continue to expand it out. Let me go ahead and jump into the next one, Admiral. Thank you for coming in. As
All
always,
right.
I appreciate you, bro.
And as a reminder to your people here, the Discord link to get in here is in the bottom of the screen where it says Discord.
There you go. Thanks a lot.
Click
Okay,
that.
next question. Here we go.
Question comes from Gunrage, who asks, mining and manufacturing will be an important part of the persistent universe. Will the mining platform in Squadron 42 concept art be available for us to purchase in the Star Citizen universe? What plans do you have for Star Citizen? Will we have warehouses and silos that we can purchase and expand upon? So I'm not sure about whether a mining operation of the size of the Shubin one that's sort of detailed in Squadron 42 would be available for players to purchase or use right off the bat in the game. We're definitely planning on allowing players to be able to do mining operations and get groups together and do it either on a small scale or a larger scale. And you certainly will be able to, as you sort of build up, have a silo or warehouse or have your mining operation. So I think there will definitely be cases where a player will be able to buy, say, a mining station and then can sort of slowly build it up over time and hire other people to help them out and do all the rest of the stuff. So it's there. I just don't know whether it will be a base the size of the Shubin one, but maybe that could be down the road. So we're still working out. We've got actually a pretty cool mining mechanic, and we're working. We're going to do sort of voxelization of asteroids, and there's a whole sort of. There'll be anyway. It won't be just holding a space bar and 2 hours and you've now mined something. And so there'll be a lot of logistics involved in terms of getting the minerals, then taking it to someone to get refined, and all the rest of stuff. So all along the sort of mining and logistics chain, people can get involved. So I think it'll be kind of a cool game for people that like to do that, and that's kind of the idea with Star Citizen, to have all these different things you can do that sort of suits all different tastes. Okay, next question comes.
Okay, let's see. Smithy Joe Bob says, I suspected Pyro won't be what the lore currently says. It has already happened. Yeah, they've changed some things in it already, so it may not be as big and hard to traverse as we have been led to believe. Yeah, first of all, people talk about how the difficulty of traversing it. There are some things that they have told us about Smithy, which are absolutely right. First of all, they've already changed some of the dynamics with the planets. For example, Pyro 3, if I'm remembering correctly, according to the star map, was supposed to be more like Mustafar in Star Wars. It's supposed to be like a lava planet. And when we saw them show us Pyro 3, they changed into it has a green habitation. It's a green world. So that was really, really, a different thing that they're doing. They said they were going to do it because they mentioned they're still working on lava and river text. They are planning on putting something in like that. As far as scale goes, they have said, not just in the early lore, but they've mentioned the size of Pyro before, that it is at least twice as big as Stanton. So, and my point is that we know that Stanton is still a smaller of the systems compared to other systems in the game. So let's just say all the systems get cut down by 30% or 50%. 5 to 10 systems is still a huge amount of real estate if there's stuff to do. If there's stuff to do. Now, that doesn't mean every planet has something on it. We get that. There are plenty of barren planets. Some systems may only have one planet that has something. Some systems may have nothing in them, right? Some of them may have 2 or 3 habitable worlds or moons that are habitable. There's plenty of real estate in the game is all we're saying. And it doesn't have to be, people keep talking about 100 systems. That's down the road. It's like no different than other games like EVE that just continue to expand out. It'll get there in time. One of the complaints that people are doing with Starfield right now is the fact that they've got all these worlds, but only 10% of them are there. And they told them ahead of time, only 10% of them are going to be filled. And people are still complaining because they see all that real estate and want to do something with it. So CIG is building outward instead of putting it all in and then trying to fill it in. And so the psychology behind it is a little bit different, but it feels better to me, even though some people may think that's not a great idea. Size is relative. Yeah, they're pretty big. Yeah. Okay, so this person was asking about, now I forgot the question already. What was it again? The mining platforms. Yeah. Some of you guys remember in Squadron 42's trailer, they show the Shubin mining platform. It's got the freaking laser coming out of it, cutting into the asteroid or whatever. That thing, remember it was shaped like the Pioneer? The Pioneer is like 1/10 of the size of that. No, we're not going to own a freaking mining platform like that. But CIG did say that you'll be able to have mining resources on planets. They've shown some of the props for that. You guys have seen some of the things that are on planets now where the things are going up and down the ground. There's little mining, pulling up resources. And evidently, we're going to have something along those lines where we can build mining areas or mining farms. And Chris says eventually expand into larger areas. We saw silos. We saw that in the props area. But whether we're going to get to a point where we've got like a UGF size looking thing, I don't think that's going to go to players. That would be, and if it did, so far down the road, but we will be able to have some type of aspect, just like farming, as far as food and stuff. There will be some type of mining resources kind of thing that we'll be able to do.
Okay, next question comes from Tamara, who asks, because Star Citizen is a sandbox, will it be possible to infiltrate an organization with your character? Will there be some tools to use your main character for that? For example, I'm in an organization A that is at war with organization B. Will I be able to hide that I'm a member of organization A without leaving my organization so I can infiltrate organization B? Otherwise, it will require a second character. So yes, we are actually thinking about having basically spying, infiltration, all built into the game mechanics. So we've already, it's not in organizations yet, but there is some stuff that will drop in actually the website that will even allow maybe a little bit of that in there, and then in the game we will definitely allow people to sort of do a little bit of that, because it's kind of fun. It's a whole nother sort of meta game that can happen, and quite frankly, if you sort of, when you read about that sort of stuff happening in EVE, it actually always reads more, it always seems much funner than whenever you watch the videos of it. So, but we're going to try and build that in. It may actually be cooler when you're sort of more visceral in first person. So there will definitely be the possibility of that in the game, and that's something that we're working towards. Next question comes from Neo.
I have a question. I'm wondering how we're going to deal with that. Some orgs are going to have rules that basically say you can only be in our org. You can't be an affiliate or any place else. And that's okay in the sense of it on what's on paper, right? What's on the website. But people can still be a part of another organization and be sneaking, right? They don't have to be an affiliate at another place. If Kai's my buddy there, Kai's got his org and they're at odds with us, and they said, Griff, we want you to go and join over a test, and you be our communications person. You let us know what they're planning to do. My org thing doesn't show on there that I know Kai, and Kai and I are talking outside of the game. And I said, yeah, man, Testa's got a big thing they got coming up this Saturday they're going to be doing, and they're going to be trying to do a mining operation. We want to go down there and hit them and get all their stuff. That's going to be weird. Yeah, we're going to have to see how that goes. I don't know how they're going to work around that, because going outside of the game is going to be doable. And how do you fight when people are outside of the game doing stuff? I don't know how they're going to be able to control that. Smithy Joe, I'd like to ask Chris when we're getting organization stuff. Yeah, Smithy Joe, the org 2.0. Now they have just recently brought it up again. So, who knows? That's all we can say about that. There are some new tools coming up, though, that we do know about. We do know that the update for the mobiGlas is coming. Update for the star map is coming. Let's hope that they are including something in there in relation to organization stuff, communication, something. We know that, I do know this, for those of you who've been in 3.20, when you go into PTU, if you go into Arena Commander now can break up and show you, like, if people are on your friends list, if you want to join them, they've got that broken down more. And I'm hoping that now we'll start seeing organization stuff pop up that way too. So if someone's in your org, you literally have a tab you can click on and you can see who's online, all that stuff, and join up with them and not have to do it through friends listing. That would be really cool. Let's see, who else do we have here? Glade said something. Yeah, Glade, I'm in multiple orgs too. I've got 3 different characters who are in different orgs. I'm in Imperial Geographic. I'm in, who else am I in? I can't remember now. I'm in like 3. I forget. I'm in a bunch of different orgs. Test is one of my mains, but I've got other ones. And then I'm in Snobs, the group that I run. I've got my own club that I run too. So people are going to have to choose. Some orgs aren't going to care if you're an affiliate someplace else, and that's going to be fine. But there are some orgs that are going to basically say, okay, this is it, and you could be it. That's right. Test and Snobs. Way to go, BSL. Admiral Kusanagi, you back?
Me again.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a difficult one. So back in the day when I cared about having an org, my thing was, you could be in, like, say I was a mining org,
Mhm.
so you could be in another mining org, but it couldn't be a competing mining org. So if we were shooting for like a medium-sized org, which I figured it'd be like 500 people,
Mhm.
well, then you shouldn't be like in another mining org, either
Mhm.
similar or higher.
Mhm.
Because then it just conflict of interest. Now,
Mhm.
if you wanted to be in like a mom and pop thing with your family, you want to do your own thing, that's cool.
Mhm.
But it also stuff came down to, how many orgs are you going to be in? Say if you're in like 5 orgs, like, am I going to see you like 10% of the time? Like
Mhm.
you can find time to play the game. So it's almost like a numbers thing where, well, hopefully if we have we said before, we talked about like the numbers in test. And, if you can get percentage of those 10,000 people, or even if I had an org of 100 people, and if I can get like, 10% of them to
Mhm.
join up,
Mhm.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
You really want people who really like one or two things and then want to just do that,
Yeah.
whether it be policing and rescue or what. I mean, there are some orgs that just do everything, and I just kind of feel like it's all over the place.
Yeah. Well,
But
to your point,
it's hard to fight that if they have multiple accounts.
it is. Here's the pro and the con. The con is exactly what you said, right? Sometimes people will join orgs just randomly or because their friends are there or whatever. Then some people are really like paying attention to what the org is going to do. For example, some orgs may be just strictly pirate orgs, right? And they want to do piracy, and that's all they want to do. They're not interested in trade or anything else. They're just going to do piracy. And if that person wants to do that, that's fine. That's where their focus is. Some people are multi stuff, right? They'll say, oh, we do trade, hauling, and fueling. So there are people who are into the whole support system stuff, and they're into that. The benefit of being in multiple orgs has to do more with availability of players, because even with Test is approaching 30,000 freaking players. Okay, that's a lot of players. And Montoya has always said, if we get 5 to 10% of those people online at a given time, that's a decent amount of people. But let's say you do have an org of 1,000 people, or let's just say 100 people, okay? And let's say you've got 10 people who play faithfully, 20 people who play faithfully. One of the other issues is that quite often people are in relatively, unless it's like Test. Test is global. We got people in every freaking time zone. But some groups only have people that are all maybe on the US servers and they're only playing certain times of day. I'm retired. There is a different group of people in the servers that test in the daytime versus nighttime. Okay. And there are some late night people. There are some people who are like dinner time people. There are people in the afternoon. There are people who are bright and early in the morning. But in smaller orgs, you don't always have that luxury. And if you've got, let's say, 100 people, and let's say you've got 50 people who are active, if they're not all within the same time zones, you may have some people in Europe who are playing at one time and other people at different times. So when you come to that org and you come to their Discord, there's only 2 people there. And if you're moving my whole sea and I just need at least 3 people to haul the ship, I'm running into problems, let alone escorts and anything else that's going on too. So the purpose of being in different orgs can serve different purposes. One could be, I'm in a big org because I know that when I want to do something, there's a 24-hour kind of coverage that people are there. Versus if I'm in a small org with some friends and we've dedicated ourselves to say, hey, every Saturday we're going to be playing at 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. And I know that they're faithfully there, then that small org works for me too, you know. But agreed, your point about conflict of interest, and that could be everything from the type of stuff you're doing, or as you said, here's a competitive org that wants to be in the same area where we're working, or maybe we're even enemies. We're fighting, right? All of those could be factors as to what each org is going to have to set for their parameters for their members. And members can pick and choose. If the rules fit them and they're willing to go with those rules, fine. If not, there's somebody out there who will, or as you mentioned, some people go out and start their own org and set their own parameters of how they want to play.
And there's two things I want to bring up. So
Mm-hmm.
you have need to know. So
Mm-hmm.
like the government, you have different levels. You've got classified, secret, top secret, compartmentalized
Mm-hmm.
information. So if you want to start out like you were saying earlier, hey, figure out where they're going. You might never get that information because you've only been in the org for 6 months. You could have been in the org for 3 years and have
Mm-hmm.
high clearance, but never maybe not top level.
Right.
And there's also like where does like contracting out to orgs like Segalian's thing come into play where hey, this group just does gasoline, or like
Hmm.
quantanium and stuff like that. Like, because I think we're missing like the potential of utilizing um or I should say company specific careers
Hmm.
that could fill the needs probably a little easier than mishmashing everybody because what we have got 5 roles to fill here. How many people do we have? Okay, we get 20. Okay, you do this, you do that, and you do this. But really, it would be great to get those 20 people just do like what you're really good at or what you're supposed to be really good at instead of
Hmm.
just trying to fill roles together. So
Yeah.
I really feel like it should go that way. I don't think people are going to play that way because they're just not used to it, and they want to be able to do everything in the game. But it's just, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. And again, there are going to be, like you mentioned, Sigelian. We know Sigelian's really into the whole refueling thing. And he's spent a lot of work and effort to make that awareness in the community. And everybody doesn't have that. He's a content creator, so that does help with him getting the word out to what he does. But there are hopefully, and this goes back to what Smithy Bob was saying earlier, Smithy Joe Bob was saying, we do need to have something that's like the website has not changed in relation to orgs, right? As far as information. And we really do need to be able to go in there with a great search engine, be really specific of what we're looking for and say, we're looking for an org that does refueling. We should be able to put in what system that we're willing, where we need to find them at, where they give us all that information so we can connect. Like Snobs, I actually had reached out. This was last year, a year before when we were going to IAE. I reached out to this one particular group because, the theme of Snobs is basically we're all stuck up people that we don't even fly our own ships. We're that stuck up. Okay. And so the idea was I was hiring another org and they were going to fly us wherever we wanted to. Basically, they were going to be our chauffeurs. And that was the deal with that. But that's because I'm going that deep with what our org is and what we do. Of course, we can all fly our own ships. But the idea of us all getting on a ship and we've hired a pilot, we're paying this person to get us someplace safely, blah, 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 and then build relationship with this other small org was a part of that plan. Now, there are some orgs like Test, for example, who will not have to rely on third-party organizations because we have different divisions for doing a lot of different things. But that doesn't mean we won't build relationship with other organizations, so that whether we're in a certain area of space, whether we're sharing mining opportunities or things like that, or trade cargo routes or protection, because maybe this org is in this area, we're not there, but we know that they're there and we want to come through there. So we want to be able to communicate with them. And maybe when they want to come through our space, we're able to communicate with them. It doesn't have to be about battles and conflict as much as it is cooperation, just as much. So we'll have to see where the org thing goes. It's still early. I think that the point was we really want to see an update in relation to organizations. And Montoya has been a real advocate for this, not in relation to test, but he's been pushing the whole thing about the smaller orgs, that there needs to be some tools out there so that they can start feeling much more, there needs to be some love given toward orgs. That's basically it. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Let me get
we need
into,
org.
yeah, we do. We need some better stuff. And hopefully there'll be an org 2.0 coming out really soon because I would like to see some stuff in relation to orgs too. Okay. Let me go to my next question. Thanks, Admiral.
Onyx 13. Given the episodic delivery of Squadron 42, will consequences of our actions between episodes migrate to the new portions of the story? For example, if I was on a losing track during the first iteration of Squadron 42, would that be the path I would start on in the next installment of the adventure, even if I was doing awesome during my stint in the Persistent Universe while the next episode was being developed? It's probably unlikely the Persistent Universe is going to be up and fully functioning by the time that Squadron 42 is being played in an episodic manner. So the whole concept of us to play Squadron 42 in episodic manner was we can't really give everyone the whole thing as kind of a broken alpha because it's a story, so you'd ruin the story. So the idea is we're going to probably have, well, not probably, we will have Squadron 42 at a more polished state when you first start playing it, but it'll only be the first 10 missions because it takes so long to get all these things done and polished correctly. And then we're sort of going to run it more, think of it like episodic TV or a mini-series event. And so the team basically will be finishing and polishing the levels, and when they've got it done, then they'll be pushing it out to all the backers out there. And that'll be something you'll be playing while waiting for the full Persistent Universe to come up and running. So we'll probably have an alpha of portions of the persistent universe, maybe a system or two that you can travel between. But in terms of having the full persistent universe, you can really go around and explore all the edges. That won't be until after Squadron 42 will be completed, because the biggest thing we're doing is the persistent universe, and it has the most amount of content. So that will definitely take the longest. So kind of our roadmap really is, dogfighting, which we're working on right now to get dogfighting V1 out, which is sort of the single-seater fighters. Then there'll be dogfighting V2, which will be the multi-crewed ships, the bigger things like Constellation, Freelancer, and something like the Idris. Although that may not make dogfighting V2 at the beginning, and it'll be a drop later. Then after would debut the sort of first-person combat section, which will probably have a sort of alpha test level. It's on an abandoned mining colony that's pretty cool that we're building right now. And then there will be a combination of that with the ship, so you could have sort of dogfighting / shipboarding happening. So capture one big ship in the middle, and people have to do the fighter cover. Then we'll probably have a planet side module, and then at that point we will start to go to the episodic delivery of Squadron 42, so the first 10 missions and then the next 10 missions, and then at some point in that we'll probably be giving some alpha of the persistent universe, and then by the time Squadron 42 is finished, hopefully the persistent universe will be ready at least in a beta format for all the backers, and then sometime after all that, all these things will be done and polished, and we'll call it done, although nothing's ever done in an online world, because we're always going to be constantly tweaking and improving it. As far as that goes, you're not really going to be able to sort of play Squadron 42 and then just drop out into the persistent universe between the 10 missions you're doing, because you're in the military. It's just like time will have suspended for you, and you come back and pick up the story where you left it off. Generally, the losing paths that are in the segments and missions we're doing will be in that sort of whatever you want to call it, episode or whatever. So they're fairly self-contained in terms of like chapter segments, the different missions. So those probably, at the end of each one, you've either failed, left the military, or you're bam onto the next thing. You've got a cliffhanger and what's happening in the next 10 episodes, and that's kind of the structure that we've been working towards. Next question comes from.
Let me stop there because I want to go over something here, and I think. Again, I told you the reason why we're going through these is because there are a lot of people who came into the game years later who don't know about this show. They never heard the full vision of the development of the game. And even people who may have been here 4, 5, 6 years, maybe never saw 10 for the Chairman and heard this. We did on Soul Citizens a show about a month ago called Visions, Dreams, and Reality. And the reason why we did that show, and that kind of what sparked me to do this, is because this is Chris Roberts talking about vision and giving us an idea of where he would like to see this project go and how the timeline of it will be. That's vision. And vision gets adapted and changes. Now, I'm saying this because I know some people are going to say, oh, you're white knighting for Chris. No, I'm not. I'm telling you reality. And if you look at what he just described about the timeline that he saw, and he talked about this person saying, oh, if I play Squadron 42 and I don't do well in it, and I go into the universe and I do well in the persistent universe, when the next episode of Squadron comes out, will my bad state from here go here, or will my good state that I've been doing better go here? And Chris says, no, these two are separate. This goes with this. And in fact, he says that the persistent universe, he says, will not be fully done until much time after this goes on. Okay, so that tells you something. One, it says that Squadron 42 is coming out before the persistent universe is fully completed. That's the first thing. The next thing that he talks about is a timeline. He talks about how they were at Arena Commander 1.0 at this time. And then later on, he wants to move from that to version 2, where there's multi-crew ships. But at the end of that, if you notice, that didn't happen. We stayed in the single crew ships. But then he says, but that might happen later on. And later on is now. We're just getting the capability for multi-crew ships 9 years later. So he does say, got to throw it in there, it may happen later, but then everything else after that he outlines has happened. And he talks about getting to the point now where we've got combat in the persistent universe and we can fight and do pirating. So we're able to do those things now. So I'm going back on this about vision so that we understand, because vision is what Chris says. The dream is what we heard and we start thinking about as players. Ooh, I can't wait to do this. Oh, I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. But then the dream sometimes gets to be too much. And then we get reality. What is it that they were actually able to deliver technically, that the technology allowed them to produce, that was as close to the vision as possible, and also hopefully satisfies the dreams of players? Okay. All right, we got Kai's in that just dropped in. Hey, Kai. Oh, he just put his mic on. There he is. Hey, buddy.
Hello, brother.
Hey.
All right, I'm gonna make this one brief. I know that this is a constant refrain from me, so I'm not trying to torture you. I swear, I say this. Really well,
It's okay.
This video was from March 2014.
Right.
We are 6 months shy of this being a decade later.
Mm-hmm. I'm listening.
At this point, a decade after these videos with these questions and these answers of, well, you know, it's gonna work like this and it's gonna do this and it's gonna do that.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of this has been delivered? What percentage of this a decade later has not been delivered, but it still falls in the realm of excusable to you of like, well, you know, there's stuff they're working on, and once we get server meshing, we'll probably see some more stuff, and you know, this, that, and the other. And what percentage of this at this point is just like, sweet baby Jesus, it's been a decade, when are you going to give us the shit that we paid for?
All right, here's the answer to your question, is because it's not a rhetorical question. Everything that he just said has been delivered. Everything. That's why I just went through it. I just went through it from V1's Arena Commander all the way to V2, and everything in between with piracy is in the game right now. Everything. Everything. He didn't mention, we weren't talking about server meshing. We're not talking about server meshing. That was not the topic of this particular segment we're talking about. Everything that he just described is in the, and that's why I just said it. I said 9 years later, we are finally getting multi-crew in Arena Commander. I just said that. Everything he said. And that's why I'm saying, and that's why I said I don't want to sound like I'm white knighting for him. I'm saying, okay, to your point of 10 years later, because we just had this conversation on Thursday or whatever day it was. Almost any game that you name right now that's AAA, that's out right now, whether single player or multiplayer, has taken 7 to 10 years to put out. Name one that didn't. Name Cyberpunk. Name No Man's Sky. Name any of them. They've all taken 7 to 10 years. And we are still within that time frame. Now, the difference was when those games started, nobody was talking about them. No Man's Sky didn't get put to the public until 2013 and got delivered in 2016. So it felt like 3 years. They started in 2010. Same thing with freaking Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk started in 2011. And it's single player, not multiplayer. And they're just now within last year got all the bugs out where it runs smoothly.
Okay.
Same thing with Bethesda. Bethesda, 7 years on their game that they already had an engine for that they started on. And that sucker just came out 7 years later. So how far off are we in relation to building 2 games, the Persistent Universe and the AAA game, right? $600 million. Let's just be, for the sake of the heck of it, splitting that down the middle, 300 million for one, 300 million for the other. Starfield was $300 million. So it's the same dollar amount being spent for a standalone game. So Griff, where's the rough part?
I'm gonna clip this.
Okay.
And in 2030, when you and I have a conversation
when you're pushing
about
me in
how
the wheelchair.
Star Citizen, in 2030, when you and I have a conversation about how Star Citizen's probably just 5 years or so from coming out.
It's coming. It's almost here.
We're gonna have a conversation that's gonna involve me being a little less polite about it.
All right, I tell you what, Kai. Kai's my boy, y'all. Y'all don't know me and Kai because I love him to death. I really do. I tell you what, Kai. You and I have had a wager about what's going to be happening at CitizenCon a little bit, you know, this particular time, right?
And we're both high on that copium.
Right, I know.
We both believe.
I know.
I still believe.
I know, because I'm going to have to put you in a straitjacket if something good doesn't happen in October. I already know that. So I'm going to say this. Let's have a conversation later on this, because your sentiment is not. Your sentiment is a very legitimate sentiment by many players in the game. And I think so much of it is driven by, you said this once before, we see the potential of what the game could be. And whether consciously or subconsciously, it also makes us have that desire to get it in our hands. And at the same time, we know we want it in our hands, right? Because none of us wants to play this game and 6 months later, we're like, what's Star Citizen, right? You know, it's gone by the wayside. And you having come through Elite, you've dealt with some of that already. I never want to say that this is an easy ride. It is not. It takes kahunas to go through this process. And one of the reasons why you've even told people, take a break, go play something else. Don't lose all your hair on your head over this project. I was just watching a video the other day. It popped up in my feed and I hadn't seen it in a long time. Was Angry Joe. He signed up for this project when it first came out and he was so excited, saying it was his first Kickstarter. He had never done a Kickstarter, blah, 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 blah. And then I've also seen over the years, him feeling like, okay, what are you guys doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah. When he first signed up for the project, he was just Joe. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Goodbye, Kai. He slipped one in on me on that time and got me to agree with him.
Yo, I got 30K.
He's so silly. Yeah. Okay, I'll admit, Kai, it's been a long time. Okay, I'll grant you that. Okay, that was a good one. Yeah, when he first started, he was just called Joe. All right. We are already an hour and 8 minutes. We haven't got off episode 1.
Yaman Card, given your background as a producer in Hollywood and with the full motion videos in the Wing Commander games, what do you think the potential would be for a Star Citizen TV series? Well, I think the universe, if we manage to do it right, will be pretty compelling. And I think at that point, it's really just going to be about people who want to spend time in the universe. I mean, primarily, obviously, flying around themselves. But, I think there's already quite a number of people that like to read David Haddock's fiction online, and that's just sort of in the written fashion. So longer term, we've been toying around doing some sort of linear content that would enhance essentially the game experience, where there would potentially be characters that we would do some, like Kid Crimson's a good example that we had back on our web, our website a while ago, and he would be a great character to run around the universe, and it would be great to sort of have his stories, but not just be written in text, but actually sort of visually see them in the environments in the world, and then occasionally in the game run across that Kid Crimson character. So that's kind of where we're thinking. That's obviously down the road. It's game first, and then sort of segue to that. But we'd probably want to try and do it in a holistic manner, so it works with the whole, the whole universe. So we wouldn't really want to license it out somewhere, and we'd probably want to use a lot of our assets, right? So, if we were going to do it, we're not sure whether it would be all digital characters or it would be actors against green screen, and then the rest would be all the universe of Star Citizen using the incredibly detailed environments and ships and all the rest of the stuff. But that would be down the road. But we think there potentially could be some great potential there. I mean, obviously there's a lot of machinima stuff out there that people like, and I think people like anything, if the story and the universe connects enough, I think people like to experience it in more than one manner. I mean, I certainly have myself in something like Star Wars. So longer term, that would be something we would consider, but short term, heads down, just building the universe in the first place and getting the game out there. Okay, next question comes.
That's an interesting question. They're basically asking based upon Wing Commander. You guys know that Chris made a movie out of Wing Commander, and he just basically asked, do you think that they would ever do something live action like that or do a TV series? Obviously, we don't want to hear anything about that right now. We want the game, right, Kai? We want the game. Don't even talk about anything like a TV series. My problem with them doing a TV series is that, Chris, we love you. Don't let Chris direct it. Chris needs to be like George Lucas. Lucas did his first film, but then after that, he hired Irvin Kershner, or Kershner was his name, Kershner, and he got other directors to do episodes. Well, he did episode 4, then he had other directors do 5 and 6. But Lucas collaborated with them. He was on set with them. He made sure that the vision remained intact and worked very closely with those directors. Dave Filoni has done the same thing. You guys have watched The Mandalorian and all that stuff. Same type of thing. He and Favreau, we know they're the guys, the visionaries for it. But they got the directors to come in, and then they brought all those directors in together to make sure that there was continuity and that the shows flowed well together. I think if they ever did something like that with Star Citizen, that needed to happen. Dave Haddock and his writing team, those people need to be involved, but they need to also have people who do it. Now, I will say this. Chris mentioned this earlier about machinima. I think everybody has enjoyed when they have produced machinima, particularly when they did the reunion. The reunion was intriguing. It fit into the lore. It made us curious about the game. And that was a really cool machinima. I don't want them to necessarily producing a machinima outside of this. We talked about this last week. I think Jade mentioned about it's almost better to let the community produce that machinima if they give them the assets and access that they can create stuff, because the community comes up with great stories. But I don't mind if CIG produces machinima that is in line with the lore to help us propel us through the universe, propel us through Squadron, propel us through the building of the persistent universe. Because they did a great job on that. I love the reunion. I thought it was a great piece. So who knows what the future will lend, but we're talking way down the line. And we're talking way down the line. So I'm not even too worried about that. I saw some of the comments earlier. Duke Nukem. Yeah, you mentioned about Duke Nukem Forever, Captain Jones, 15 years, and it was crap. Yeah. Again, the scale of games has grown. And part of the difficulty is that as these games grow, the development times grow, the budgets grow, right? And what used to take, when Chris did Ring Commander, I think it was less than 2 years, or I forget how long. It was a very short amount of time that he did it. Now we've got games that were, they've went from 2 years to 5 years to 7 years. 7 years used to be the average amount of time for a AAA game. And now we're looking at 7 to 10 years on games. And when we say that, even though they're releasing them in 7 years, 8 years, it's still taking them another year to 2 years, as someone mentioned here earlier about Cyberpunk, to polish them, to get them finally in a better state, because the publishers have pushed them to get these games out. And understandably, they're trying to get money back. And even the companies, to a certain degree, want to get the game out because they want to get revenue, because they start running out of funds. But the sad part about that is for gamers, the games are complete. That's frustrating. That's frustrating. It's a funky place to be for gaming. For somebody like me, who, when we used to get games when they came out, it was finished. It was done. There was no patches. There was no updates. It was a done deal. But now the machine has changed, and maybe that's just the way it is. The machine has changed, and games now are produced in a different way, with larger budgets, and also with larger budgets comes longer time. And hopefully, they've said this, having more money does make the time a little shorter, but it doesn't shorten it by a lot, especially if you're doing research development. You're not trying to produce the same thing you produced in before, all that good stuff. So anyway, enough of that. Let me move on. Hey, Lady Star Patrol, good to see you. There you go. Here we go.
From Osarian, who asks, are there any plans to bring back some of the voice actors from the previous Roberts productions? Checky Caro, David Suchet, John Rhys-Davis, or use other well-known voice actors, Jennifer Hale, Ron Perlman, or start with fresh actors? P.S. Can we have a characters voice acted by Chris Roberts, Sandy Gardner, or Eric Wingman-Peterson? Better yet, all three. Well, we haven't disclosed, who we're going to get. I mean, I don't really want to do that until we've finished the Squadron 42 script, which we're in the process of writing. We've got the outline and everything, but we haven't finished it. It's going to be 700 pages plus of, fairly large. That's what happens on something that has this scale. Yes, we are going to have some, definitely be bringing back a few people that I've worked with before. And also we'll be bringing back, or not bringing back, but bringing in some really interesting and good character actors. I mean, obviously I have a lot of experience from making my movies and have a lot of relationships. So like, for instance, I've worked with Ron Perlman. He's a great guy. I mean, we made Outlander together, and there's a whole bunch of other people that I think would be great and to use in our game. And we probably, if we bring the actors in, we're doing full body motion capture, full facial capture, and also head scanning and all the rest. So if we did have a Ron Perlman or someone else that's a fan favorite in, it would look like them, which would be kind of cool. Yeah. So we'll do that, and I'm sure there's going to be some cameos from the various development people here. I mean, if you remember Wing 3 and Wing 4, and actually the Wing Commander movie 2, I have a cameo in every one of them, and I'm pretty confident we'll be putting myself and Sandy and Eric and probably a few other people in the universe. It's a big universe, so we got to populate it with a lot of different people. Okay, next question.
Okay, real quick, y'all be nice about Kathleen Kennedy, all right? You all be nice about Kathleen Kennedy, to both people's points. Lady Space Patrol, you're absolutely right. Kathleen Kennedy has been a part of Lucasfilm for decades, and they have produced a lot of great stuff with her being one of the producers and executive producers over the franchise. Over the years, though, there have been some decisions made by Kathleen and Disney that have not gone well with the fan base. And so Jiglade, I said be nice. Okay, everybody has their opinion, and this channel is not about Star Wars right now. So, but there have been decisions that the fan base has not been happy about. Some people are very happy with things. Time will tell, gang. Not to be funny, but if you guys remember when episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out of Star Wars, the fans hated it. They hated it. People burned George Lucas to death over everything from Jar Jar Binks to Anakin Skywalker. And 20 years later, people celebrate those episodes, okay? The Star Wars fan base is a very both fickle and dedicated group of people. And so don't base it upon that. You just got to let time tell and see what happens with stuff. Death Jar Jar. Yes, Kai, that still should have been the hook. Jar Jar Binks should have been a Sith. It would have been the ultimate flip in the franchise. They missed an opportunity there. But again, this isn't about Star Wars, so we can go on and on and on and on about the franchises. A lot of that stuff was the directors and stuff too. Y'all know that. But anyway, Chris says about this thing about characters in the game. We do know that Chris did go back and get some of the characters who played in Wing Commander. John Rice Davies was one of them. Mark Hamill. He didn't let that cat out the bag. I'm sure he's probably working on that at this time, but Mark Hamill's in there. And then there are some new faces that came in too. We've got Jillian from, what's the name of the series? Gillian Anderson from X-Files. And some other people, a lot of other people who are in this game that are really cool. They asked whether or not Chris and them will do any, cameos. Who knows? Maybe Chris will show up in the game. I don't know. We do know that Sandy did some of the mocap stuff. Don't know if she's in the thing. No, you know what? I think she is on the list of stuff. I think. Now that I think about it. Yeah, I know you're being nice, Glade. I know you just don't like Kathleen, but that's okay. Everybody's got their opinion about the shows, Anyway, that we get the whole thing. We'll see whether or not Chris does some type of thing, and some of the other people that they recognize. Maybe they'll show up in the game. Who knows? All right, I got to get through this first episode, y'all. We may only get through one episode
Question
today.
comes
Jesus Christ.
from Bayor the Red, who says, given the nature of the persistent universe, with fringe systems also being the most lawless, are PvP and exploration intrinsically linked? Will I need to always be ready to fight for my life while exploring and bring an Idris full of battle-hardened friends wherever I go? I don't necessarily think so, because that's sort of making the assumption that if you're exploring and finding new systems, that system's teeming with pirates or PvP. Which won't necessarily be the case. So some of the exploring stuff is going to be off the beaten track, and therefore won't be somewhere that everyone will naturally go to. And so in certain cases in the exploration mode, we're probably going to have it tuned in such a way that the ability for sort of a PvP encounter in that sort of off the exploration mode wouldn't necessarily be as high as being in a notorious sort of a lawless pirate system. Now, that's not to say there won't be any chance of it at all, because there definitely will be, because there has to be some risk and there has to be some tension when you're in the unknown. You don't know who you're going to come across. I think that's definitely going to add to the game experience. But the goal would be to sort of balance that. So there's a whole bunch of things that we're going to try and do. I know we always have raging debates between PvP and PvE on the forums, and everyone's pretty much dug in. It's intractable. It's like an argument on religion or politics. But my naive hope is I think I have a pretty good take and a system that will hopefully make both sides be pleasantly surprised and kind of deal with most of the issues that everyone's worried about. But we'll see, right? So I have to wait till we get there. So I would ask everyone that you sort of wait till it happens, and we're also going to be key balancing. But we've got some sort of tricks up our sleeves I think will make it work well. And everyone's got to remember that there's going to be a huge amount of people from both sides, PvP and PvE, playing this game. So I know that everyone on the PvP side feels like, well, if there aren't PvE people there that I can fight, then who am I going to be able to take out easily? Which doesn't make much sense because there's no reason why NPCs aren't going to be that hard, aren't going to be as tough as a normal player, and vice versa on the PvE. They said, oh, well, if everyone's PvP, they're just out to gank me, which also I don't think is necessarily true, but we certainly can make sure that people that have a preference one way or another tend to be grouped together when they play, and that affects kind of what we're doing in the game. But it's sort of a delicate balancing system. There's a lot of metrics that will go into it. I have some pretty good, strong ideas. I mean, all I can say is that people should take faith in the fact that the game will be balanced in the way that I kind of like it to be played, and for the way I like it to be played is I'm not extreme on either side. So some days I like to be competing, doing PvP, and some days I like to be doing PvE, and I don't want to be dealing with other people. So the game is going to allow you to be able to sort of have those experiences, and in such a way that it won't be detrimental to the other experience. So there you go. I'm sure there'll be a massive forum war waged on this right after this episode.
Okay, so PvP, PvE. Do me a favor, guys. Throw something in chat for me real quick. If you're a PvPer, type in a 0. If you're a PvEer, type in a 1. I'm curious. Chris says he's going to have something that's going to be a little bit different. 0 and 1. Okay, Ladies Space Patrol. Marzipan. Okay, Prisoner. Okay. All right, we got some little bit of balance here, almost 50-50 just about. It's interesting that he says that he likes both. Right? He thinks there should be a balance of both. And he also says that he thinks that they're working on something that will make both sides happy. One of the things I'm hoping, and I know I'm white knighting again, but I know Chris has been paying attention to what goes on in games. And as I mentioned earlier about Eve, one of my disappointments in Eve is that it did not allow for a great balance of PvE and PvP. Way more PvP than PvE. And that's okay if you want to go into that world, but I wanted to have a better balance, and not in the sense of just combat, but I mean, I wanted to have things in the game that were a little bit more, they advertised that you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, and you could, but everything you did always had PvP stacked on top of it. Chris says here, the universe is going to be big enough that there are going to be some areas where you probably won't have to worry about it. Other areas, of course, where you will have to worry about it. And that's fine. I'm happy with that. I'm just hoping that they'll come up with something that's innovative, not the same old stuff, but something that we haven't thought of, that both sides dig it. Both people don't feel like they've neglected it, or it's going to be a hard road to hoe, very difficult tightrope to walk, but let's hope that they do it. I'm hoping that they do come up with something that allows both to coexist, and not just coexist, but even complement each other when it's all said and done. Maybe this ratio of 9-to-1 NPCs in the game will be a factor for that. Even people who are into PvP, that the real challenge becomes going after pirates. I remember CIG saying years ago that they were able to set the AI at a point where they can one-shot you, or that their accuracy is virtually 100%. And for PvP players, that might be a serious challenge for them. Maybe not at 100%, but maybe it's at 90% or 85%, where they feel like whether they're going against a person, a human, or whether they're going against the AI, they're always going to be able to find some challenge. And as long as there's challenge out there, they don't care. As long as it affects their reputation and things of that nature, they'll be satisfied. And the same thing with PvEers, same thing. Maybe the challenge for AI is so good that it makes PvEers feel more comfortable when they do have to go against a human player, because they've practiced enough being out there fighting and getting blown up against PvE. So we'll have to see where that balance goes. Let's hope we get server meshing this year. You know what? The good thing about server meshing, Gladestone, and I'll just touch on this for a very hot second, is that they are working on it. They're already working on static meshing. PES has been finally kind of 99.2% approved as being they're moving on. And we know they've been working on static server meshing for a little bit. Dynamic is after that. So I agree with you. Let's hope that this year we step into that, because that would be great. Because I'm looking for things like server population to increase. I want to go up from this 110, whatever number we're at now. I really would love to see 250 to 500 people in servers. That's where I'm looking to see us go next, but we'll see where that goes. Okay. All right, let's get these last couple questions in. Because it is already 126. Jeez, one episode so far.
Okay, last question comes from Nomad, who asks, will Squadron 42 or the Star Citizen Persistent Universe contain content that pays homage to some of your past games, e.g. Wing Commander or Freelancer, that fans will pick up in NPC dialogue, UE news bulletins, hidden Easter eggs, or the like? So all I can say is yes. In fact, I mean, if you notice, we've already did it. If you look at the Squadron 42 cinematic trailer we did back in October 2012, there's lots of Wing Commander homages there. So we've definitely got some, even in the dogfight that's coming up. We have a homage to Wing Commander. So you will see in the virtual network that you join to do the dogfighting simulation, and the company that has created it in 2944, it's all kind of an homage. So we'll definitely be continuing to do that, and it will be fun. All right, that brings us to an end of another episode of 10 for the Chairman. Woo! Thank you all for listening to my rather...
All right, we got through that episode. Let's see what time is it. 127. We can get maybe one more episode in, I think. I think we could do one more episode today. I was hoping to get 3 in. I tried to get 3 in, but we had a great conversation today. Yeah, you guys know that even if you want to give the ultimate homage to Wing Commander, give them $10,000, and that's the title that you get in the game is Wing Commander. So yeah, if you give them 10 grand, you could be called a Wing Commander in the game. All right, let's jump into episode number. This is episode 16. Where's my? I'm missing an episode here, gang. This is okay. Why is this not even showing the names of the episodes over here? Give me uno momento, gang. I got to go back and fix something here. 10 for the Chairman. That was 14. We've got to get to... I thought I had these queued up right earlier. And what the heck is this? Okay. I'm getting frustrated here. Sorry, gang. Let me find episode 15. That was 14. Here's 15. April 7th, 2014. See if we can get this one in 30 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. This is where I answer 10 questions that have been asked by our subscribers. For those of you who don't know, subscribers are the subset of our community that kick in a little extra money every month to enable us to do a lot of extra content. So this show, Wingman's Hangar, a lot of our behind-the-scenes stuff, Jump Point, is all sort of financed by the money that comes in from subscribers, and then of course it trickles down. This right away, but even the Jump Point stuff trickles down to the general community all. So we all owe a big thanks to our subscribers. And I asked them 10 questions. So just while we're starting here at the beginning, I have a nice book, Ace of Aces, about René Fununk. I'm probably butchering his name in French. But Francois Girard sent it as one of our backers based in France. And René was the top allied ace next to Richthofen. And obviously this is going back to one of my 10 for the Chairman when I was talking about the film that I'd worked on that involved the Red Baron, Baron von Richthofen. So thank you very much for this book. It's actually kind of interesting because all these pilots and all these characters are people that I researched when I was writing the American Night script, which was the World War I based script. And it's a fascinating time. And in fact, some ways, this kind of stuff informs Star Citizen, Squadron 42, and in the past, Wing Commander, because there's a sense of sort of camaraderie between the pilots and the squadrons and chivalry. And anyway, it's very cool. So thank you, Francois, for the book. Much appreciated. Okay, so let's get to the 10 questions here. The first question is from Lamvaris. David Haddock mentioned some stuff about writing in-universe fiction involving player actions, such as interviewing a player who discovers a new jump point and then putting out a Spectrum post about it. Do you know how some large-scale player actions that affect the universe are going to be handled from a lore and gameplay standpoint, like Operation Pitchfork? Well, I'm not so sure. I mean, Operation Pitchfork is a pretty big operation, which may be beyond the ability of the game to support in the manner that everyone envisions. But our goal is to really have the player actions become part of the universe's lore and fiction. So we'd actually talked about once the game's live that we have, part of the live team is almost like a think of it as a news team, but it's not a news team for today's world, it's a news team for our virtual world. So they're paying attention to what the players are doing, and when there's sort of meaningful, battles or exploration or intrigue or events happening, they actually create in-fiction reporting content for it, which could go as far as interviewing, say, some of the players involved, and then having it done up as a news. So if you go into a bar, there's a program playing on the monitors, and it's sort of the 60 minutes of our universe, and it's talking about this event that happened in this side of the galaxy, which was a player-driven event. And if the player-driven events are sort of big enough or meaningful enough, our goal would be to sort of run with them and also weave them into what we're doing with the universe. So the way to think of it is the same way, like if you ever played D&D a long time ago, or any sort of tabletop role-playing game, where the game master sort of has his idea of the story he's taking you on, but he's always constantly like taking what the players are doing and folding that into what he's weaving you as a story. I mean, that's the sign of a good game master, and we're going to try and do that with Star Citizen. Okay, so next question comes from...
Okay, Chris Roberts is the Dungeon Master. Okay, we do know that CIG has done this. Operation Pitchfork, for those of you who don't know it, was supposed to be this great launch attack against the Vandul when the universe comes together. And we know that they actually did a skin that you could get for the Aurora, for the Operation Pitchfork, and it is carried on for a long time. We don't hear people talking about it very much because we know the Vandul are a long, long way away, but they've done that. Most recently, though, we know that Atmo Esports, with their races that they've done with Stanton 7 and with the other races, Daymar Rally, they now have been built not only into the lore, but also built into the game. We actually have a couple of the racetracks, the Snake Pit, and the actual event, which has now become a part of Star Citizen. So they are listening and paying attention to the community, and if there's something that they feel that they can fold into what we're doing in this timeline of what they want to create for Star Citizen, they are open to that. Not everything gets brought in. There have been some things that I know that some people have tried to introduce into Star Citizen, and CIG has rejected it. They have said, no, doesn't fit within what we're trying to do. And so some of those people haven't been happy about that, but CIG is open to it if it fits within what they're trying to do within their context, which is cool that they're listening to the community at that level.
From Mabarus, who asks, how will commanding work in battles? Will we have some kind of strategic view of the area and can designate targets, objectives, and waypoints for individual players or designated wings? Kind of an RTS view for commanders. So, well, there'll be, so commanding in battles, in the space battles, is going to be pretty interesting. I mean, obviously, the capital ships are going to be a large part of that, and there's multiple stations on the capital ships. In a future date, we're going to sort of have a really in-depth, behind-the-scenes, like a Death of a Spaceman piece about what we're going to do on the big capital ships, to sort of show you kind of the level of sophistication that we're trying on that, and just how all these different stations inside the ship can work together. And because just having a big ship is not going to mean that you're going to win a battle. You're actually going to have a team of players that are operating the big ship well in concert to be effective. And I think that's true in real life, and it's going to be pretty cool. So one of the things, just if we're talking about a commanding basis, usually there'll be sort of a kind of a battle command or whatever, so I don't know, who will be designated commander, but it will be sort of like a big holosphere, and you're going to see a very small version kind of that you would in the dogfighting, even in the radars, which are these sort of holospheres, but the big ones will be much bigger areas, and essentially, you're looking at the sphere and you're clicking, you can see these sort of digital holographic versions of the various ships in their positions, and you click on them and give them a command or drag an arrow over and say attack over here. So you will sort of essentially have an RTS view that you're communicating with, and then that from there will be sending messages to the person in his fighter or in his bomber or in his corvette or whatever, and say, hey, you're required to attack this ship. So it should be pretty cool. We're looking forward to it. That's sort of the dogfight V3 level that I sort of hinted at in another episode of 10 for the Chairman. The next question comes from...
Okay, so you guys know they're basically asking what will be the command and control aspects of the game, how we'll be able to let people know in our org if we're in a combat situation how to attack, blah, 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 blah. Chris says that basically this is 2014, the holosphere, which, you know, we do have on our ships. If you have some of the larger ships, you have a holosphere. I know the Carrack's got one, the Idris has one, Javelin has one. But these are command areas. That's why they're considered command ships, where you can be able to designate where you want things to happen. I'm really curious to see how that's going to look. We just have a placeholder there right now, but it is on our ships, and evidently that's your command and control area.
The Cafade, has there been any more development on the racing aspect of Star Citizen? Will we have betting and spectator systems? We haven't done a huge amount of development on the racing part of Star Citizen. We've been pretty heads down on just sort of the space flight dogfighting side. I will say that we do plan to make it a feature. There will be sort of in-game betting, and there will be spectator ability, and we're going to have the whole, have a circuit that people can race on, just like we're going to have sort of a, in-fiction esports version of the dogfight simulator, which is what we're going to essentially be rolling out with the dogfight modular, which is the, sort of the sim mode where it allows you to sort of virtually take your ship out and fight other people to, hone your skills as a pilot without actually risking your ship. So those two things are things that we're planning to, make kind of almost into sort of, whatever you want to call it, esports or something, but sort of in fiction esports. I think it'll be quite cool. Next question comes from Oroshi.
Okay. Let's see. We already know about this racing thing, right? This has been a big deal. One of the things I'm looking forward to, even though we know that in this last patch or patch before they 318, I think it was 318, 317, 318. They implemented all the new racetracks, right? Or is it 19? Maybe it was 19, 18. Anyway, they implemented all these new racetracks. And people have really been getting into racing more and more. I was never really into it, but it seems like every person that goes out and tries it comes back and tells me later on, oh, I had a great time racing. It was so much fun. So we had planned on doing it this last Saturday, but it was a long day for me this weekend. I couldn't get in and do anything. But hopefully we'll do it next week. Hopefully. I think we could do it maybe next week. Anyway, the one thing that got implemented several patches back, and I don't remember when they did this, was GrimHex. They actually put in a area where we're supposed to be able to do, I don't want to say it's like off-track betting, but it looks like an off-track betting place, right? All the monitors are there. You got the big window screens. There's a bar there where you can go there and actually watch races. I do know that CIG has implemented a racetrack in that area, but I don't think it's in relation to that spectator area. So I'm curious to see where they're going to go with that. But I'm hoping that they do make that active as a place to go to watch races in GrimHex. And I would love for them to actually build places at the racetracks where you can go. I know this is going to be weird, but I hope that they do that for the spectators, right? So, because you want to be able to see the races. And you don't want to be flying around in ships watching it, but to be able to park and go and take a tram or something that takes you in where you can enjoy the race would be a great social space to me for the game. But we'll see if they come up with something like that. I don't know. That might be a stretch.
Will we get hangars for our orgs, and will members be able to leave their ships there maybe while flying in an org-owned ship? So yes, we do have plans to have organization hangars, which are much bigger, shared. They'll be communal. We're going to allow organizations to also be able to buy ships, and like I think I've said before, organizations will be able to sort of tithe, tax, demand fees from their members, and they should be able to sort of loan them out to various members to use. And I would guess you would probably let players, they could probably leave their ship there, especially if they're taking off a organization-owned ship. So yes, the answer would be yes there. Next question.
Now this is something I've heard in the past before, and I never remember where I heard it, but now I guess this is where I heard it. Was about org hangars. Those of you who played Eve know that we had something like that. This is where this is where a lot of hurt and pain came from in Eve, where people would go in and do a form of spying and espionage, and they would basically sneak into an org, participate for a good amount of time. I knew people who participated in an org for 2 years. I think even I've heard longer, where they basically worked their way up in the ranks of trust and people building up and thinking this person was a great person, and then eventually this person getting keys to the vault, right? keys to access resources or keys to access ships. And next thing you know, this person shows their true self and comes in and cleans an org out, whether it was through to clean out their bank accounts or their ships. I was in the org where that happened one time. Somebody got in and we had some orcas and they got our ships. So it'll be interesting to see what CIG implements, whether they're going to let players put their ships there. I don't know. To me, that's a stretch because players have their own hangars and stuff. If you want to store your ship on another person's ship, like if you own a Kraken and your friends want to put their ships there, to me, that's the way to do it. Or on someone's Idris, something like that. Yeah, org hangars are going to be a thing. It's just they're going to be much larger. We just heard last week about cargo and hangars, this past week about persistent hangars and hangars that are going to be procedural, that they're going to be putting in. It's going to be really interesting to see where the instance hangars, not procedural, instanced hangars. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with this. I'm sure org hangars will be down the road, but according to Chris, that was something that they had on their mind. Let's go to the next one.
Pid, who asked, how much time will it take for information to travel from one end of the playable space to the other, since communications do not travel at FTL speeds? It's not 100% defined yet because that's sort of a balance playable thing. The way that the communication is going to work is it sort of travels at our in-fiction communication speed, which means that when you're in system and someone beams a message, it gets beamed at the speed of light, and essentially gets beamed, to a relay station or a message station. So this is in sort of the structured, universe where UEE runs, and there's a lot of like infrastructure. And say one of these stations is right by a jump point, and so it gets all the information, and then it will launch out a message drone or a messenger ship. Will go through the jump point to the other side where there's probably another relay station. That data is then transferred up to the data station. Then it gets beamed across to another relay station, and so on and so forth if it has to go multiple systems. So essentially, the speed of communication is sort of based around the speed of light and how long that message would take to travel in system, and then it's instantaneous between system jumps, except for the regularity or the schedule of the message drones or the messenger ships that go through the jump points. So in a very populated core system, that's happening all the time, but in a backwater system, it won't be very frequent at all. And in fact, in some systems, there won't be any of that infrastructure, and that's where info runners and other people come into account, because they'll be taking missions to take information that's critical and as fast as they can, and especially if there's other people that want to stop that information getting there. So in terms of game time, it's kind of hard to quantify, but I think we would probably sort of limit it within the limits that I sort of gave there, within how long it would take you actually to transfer a jump point and what the regularity is. Obviously we recognize that people will be able to chat and talk to each other instantly, because if we don't provide it in the game, they're going to be doing it outside the game anyway. So we're going to provide it, but in terms of like any goods or missions being accepted or missions being offered, or all the sort of in-game stuff that we do control, that will all operate at the speed of communication in our universe. Okay, next question comes from Natas, who asks...
Okay, so this whole thing with communications and FTL speed, they've talked about this for a long time, how communication will go. There's also the issue of if a comm array is turned off. I'm curious to see what communications will be needed. Now, I understand sending data, for example. If you want to transfer information, if you are trying to transmit something across systems, I get that. Voice communications, like Chris said, people are going to be using things like Discord, like Guilded, other sources, a way to communicate with people that'll be outside of the game. So I'm curious to see how dependent we are going to be on the comms thing, but they have talked about it in theory, how they want to do it. How long it'll take, they said they're still working all that out, okay?
There's been some talk about gravity generators being part of the ship mechanic. I was wondering if you could go into a little more depth as to how this will work if that system is taken offline. For example, will we be able to move about the ship without gravity? And if so, how will this be done? Or will the crew of your ship that's not being belted be stuck floating in space? Okay, so, well, that's a good question. This is actually something we've been working on. The first-person shooter team has actually got zero-G movement and everything to a nice stage. We're going to add even more stuff, but you will essentially, if the gravity system gets turned off in your ship, and by the way, this is something you could use to mess up with boarders. So boarders come in and you turn gravity off, immediately you're in 0G. So unless you've got magnetic boots, which we're also going to let you have, you'll float around. And when you're in 0G, we're also going to let you sort of push off walls and elements, and certain suits will have thruster sets that will let you maneuver in 0G. So it's going to be a whole level of extra gameplay that's going to be super cool, that's pretty different than a lot of first-person shooter gameplay that you're aware of. So, if you've seen Gravity and the pushing off and all that, we're going to have all that, plus the thrusters maneuvering, which I guess you also saw a little bit in Gravity when they're outside. You can use the Gravity, no Gravity as sort of a defense mechanism. And, if you're storming a ship, it may be a good idea to have magnetic boots that you can turn off and on. So when you want to be walking around, you're using magnetic boots, you want to get into 0G, you just turn off your electromagnet, and then you're floating if you push yourself off. Okay, there you go. So next question comes from...
Okay, Grandiose G, thank you for that follow. Appreciate that. This is not new. Oh, it's Stunner. I didn't see you pop in. Thank you as well. And who else? Razzle? How come I didn't hear these when they chimed earlier? Thank you guys for joining. Thank you. Gravity. We know that gravity is going to be a factor in the ships. Gravity wells are on certain ships. You guys have seen the big spinning ball that zooms around like that, right? The Reclaimer's got one. The 400i has one. There's another ship I'm thinking about that has this spinning ball thing. The Starfarer has one, but it's never spinning. It's always just sitting there, I think. But anyway, there's gravity. There's gravity's component areas and stuff too on certain ships. One of the things that I was always curious about was this issue about gravity boots, and I kept thinking, are they going to ever do grav boots, right? Because he's talking about it here, and this is back in, again, 2014. The first time we see gravity boots in the game, if you've never seen them, they finally showed them to us. It is the trailer for the Vulture. If you guys watch that trailer, if you remember that trailer, you see the pilot pulls up to a wreckage area, starts working on it. Then you see them walk out on the left arm of the Vulture, and they're wearing the grav boots. And then once he gets to the end, he releases them and he EVAs over. Last year at CitizenCon, when they did the televised, or the one that they did online, they showed us the new EVA. They showed it to us where we had the whole thing with push, pull, grabbing, turning. So we're going beyond the current EVA. I think we're at EVA 2.0 right now. I guess this will be like a 3.0. So that's going to be coming as well. I'm hoping that the grab boots come in too. That would be so awesome, especially for those of you who are actually doing salvaging. If they expand salvaging to its next level, where now you're able to go in and start cutting parts, removing things in an EVA spaced environment, grab boots would be great, because doing it EVA is a kick in the head right now. So we'll have to see what happens, but hopefully that will happen. Hey, Abdi, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Okay, let's hit this next one here.
From Terra Titan Opticon, who asks, if you have to space your cargo hold in the Persistent Universe to avoid being boarded, will you be able to leave some kind of booby trap, like an explosive device or tracker hidden in the cargo? Or maybe even an ink bomb like they use at the bank. That would be pretty funny. Something to make pirates think twice. That's a good question. I think there would be no reason why you wouldn't be able to have something that you could have in your cargo that could be an explosive device. So part of your cargo could be a bomb that you could remotely detonate, or you could even have a tracker hidden in the cargo. I think I mentioned on a previous Temp of the Chairman that we were working on the cargo system, and one of the concepts was, a higher end cargo container could have sort of low jack ID identification on it, whereas most of the basic ones don't. So if you have one of those, it's much harder for you to, if you gain one of those illicitly, it's much harder for you to sell one of those. So I think, we're definitely thinking of things to do that, and then of course there would be the counters for the pirates, because it's always fun to sort of have this back and forth as far as that goes. Okay, next question comes.
Okay, so basically he's asking if can you set up ways to thwart pirates if they want to pirate you, either by booby trap or ink explosion. I don't know what an ink explosion would do. You just need to go, a glitter bomb, prisoner. Mess up your ship too, right? A skunk, yeah. We do know that they're going to put in tripwire bombs. We do know that, and I'm assuming that you could set one up, mount it to your ship or mount it to a cargo piece. Of course, pirates will be able to see that. The question becomes if they destroy the bomb, if they try to, what's the word? What's the word for when you want to defuse the bomb? If they want to defuse the bomb, there's odds that it could fail. If it fails, maybe they get killed or takes damage. Maybe it damages the cargo even. But if they could just if all they have to do is shoot it and it's gone, that's not going to be a big deterrence there. But you know, I guess they're saying, are there some things you can do? CIG also talked about this idea of insuring cargo. You insure your ship. I think there's supposed to be an option to insure your cargo at the insurance terminal. If you decide to insure your cargo, is that the way for you? He mentioned about like the IDing your cargo, like for LoJack. Does that mean you pay an additional, I don't know, 20%, 10% to the insurance company to insure your cargo so that in case it's stolen, it can be tracked? Maybe that's what the insurance is, or maybe the insurance is that you can get a certain percentage of it paid back. We don't know what the insurance is going to look like, but they are looking at some ways to give some protections, but it will probably be costly. It will probably cost you money. It's going to be risk versus reward as always. Not so costly that you don't want to do it, but not so low in cost that it's not a big deal. Oh, pay an extra $5,000 and your stuff is insured or UEC. It's got to be something that balances out. Just like right now, when we pay insurance, it's a little painful. It's got to be that same type of thing. Most of the time we pay for insurance, we never need it. But there may be that occasion where you paid for it and it was well worth it. So that'll be something that they'll have to see what they come up with as far as that goes. Okay.
Comes from Revilo1337, who asks, what will happen to everything we've achieved, earned, bought, etc. at the end of the Persistent Universe Alpha and Beta? That's a pretty good question. We haven't really thought that through properly yet. I mean, I would say that probably it won't carry through to the full game. There may be some case where we sort of feel like we're in beta and that's good enough and that will carry through, but probably sort of the early alpha stuff where you're just like, you know, I think our first sort of Persistent Universe test will be sort of in one closed system or, you know, one or two closed systems. And I think we'll probably do one system first and then we'll open up a couple extra systems for jump points and sort of build it up that way. And the early stages, yeah, I think that it would not make sense for you to carry across all the stuff that you've earned in a sort of kind of unbalanced closed system into the main one. But at some point in beta, it will be close enough to what it is that it will carry across. But haven't fully decided on that yet. Okay, next question comes from...
Okay, let me stop there because something significant happened in this last week. Many of you saw the post that came out about 320, came from Wikipedia, saying that persistence is now effectively in the game and that they are not planning to do a wipe for 320. Now, this doesn't mean that they're not going to do a wipe again, okay? It means in this particular case, anything that you have in the live server when they go to 320 is going to remain, except for items that are consumables like food, like ammo, things of that nature. You will lose. If it's not in an inventory, like, you know, how you go to a planet or a landing zone and everything's in the inventory there, it either has to be there or it has to be in the inventory on your ship. So like I've gone through, all my ships have weapons in their weapons rack. That is going to stay there. Now, we saw a precursor of this in 319 when people started finding out that there was a hack that you could do where you could store stuff in your ship all of a sudden and it would remain. And we figured that they had put that in because they were now working toward long-term persistence. Well, now that persistence is in the game. So for right now, we're reaching the beginning stages of what this question was about carrying things over in the verse. And for now, we will be able to start carrying things over. You'll be able to carry your money over. You'll be able to carry over your items and stuff in the game. Will there be wipes? Yes. If there's an exploit, if the game's broken, if for some reason they need to reset everything, that can still happen. But these resets now on your inventory are not going to happen as frequently as they've happened in the past. So we are getting there. Another step toward the final maintenance of, you know, persistence remaining all the time. Next question.
From Jabu, who asks, you mentioned in the beginning that there will be also mission discs for Squadron 42, at least one. Will a character be able to go back to do these mission discs to Squadron 42 after finishing the original campaign and moving on to the PU? Yes, absolutely. I mean, in fact, you know, the additional Squadron 42 story packs or whatever will be written and designed to be such that they're expected to be after you've finished Squadron 42 and you've mustered out into the great galaxy as a whole. So you definitely will be able to go back to them after finishing the original campaign and being in the Persistent Universe. Last question.
Now That is a great question. Can you go back and play Squadron 42 again? And they've told us this before, but here it is, Chris mentioning it, because there are some people who know that when you play Squadron 42, the idea is to reach a certain level in the game where you can gain citizenship, or citizenship, and then or be in the UEE, whatever the case may be. You may play the game, and the game you don't reach whatever level you wanted to, or maybe you didn't do as well as you thought. Chris is saying that you can go back and play the game again. That's one of the things he mentioned before too, about he wants to have some replayability. If you guys played Wing Commander, you know that that was kind of what Chris's thing is, right? Being able to go back, play the game again, have a different outcome, which is great, even though it's still linear. But you can change what your progress level is in the game before you go into the next chapter. And if you don't know this, I shouldn't say chapter. Star Citizen is supposed to be like a chapter, like story based. So when we get Squadron 42, I think Squadron 42 has, I forget, Admiral Kusanagi, I know you've been following this. I forget how many chapters. It's like 20 chapters, 17, I forget. But there's like 20 chapters in that particular game. Then there's going to be Squadron 42 Part 2, which has got chapters to that. And then possibly a Squadron 42 Part 3. It's chapter based as well. Okay. Episodic. Thank you, Abdi. Episodic. Okay, each episode. There we go. All right. I think this might be the last question. We're doing good. We might finish up before 2 o'clock. We'll only get 2 in the day, 2 episodes.
With the voice chat, will we be able to just do a short range broadcast to everyone nearby? If so, would I be able to charge into battle blasting out Ride of the Valkyries? That's kind of cool. Yeah, definitely Apocalypse Now moment there. So, yeah, I mean, I think the voice chat, the way it's going to work is that you can hail people and then people can decide whether they want to listen to you. I don't know whether it would be they listen to you by default and then they can mute you, or they have to accept listening to you in the first place. But you definitely will be able to broadcast in a close range a message or potentially play music. And if people have the comm channels open, they will hear it. We just need to be sensitive to how to set that up in such a way that people can't use it to abuse other people, because you don't want people, being obnoxious, which people are quite known to do in online games. But we will definitely, would like to get IP, voice over IP, running in the game, and then we'll just figure out the right system for you being able to broadcast people, or people being able to accept whether they want to listen to you or not. So there you go. They're my 10 questions for this week. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you found them informative. And again, thank you to all the subscribers for contributing extra money to enable us to do all this kind of additional community content. Thank you to the backers out there for essentially allowing us to make this incredibly ambitious game that we've all dreamed of, and I think you guys have dreamed of. So thank you, and I'll catch you next week. Goodbye.
Okay. The communication stuff that he talked about. I don't remember what year it was when we got that, but I remember it was the year they showed us Levski down in the bar there, where we got voice communication, and they showed us that it was proximity based. It's proximity based. It's also stereo, which is kind of cool. Somebody standing on your left or their right, you hear them on that side. The further away they are, the more their voice fades out and comes back in. So being able to have voice communication has been in the game for some time now. They also added hailing. Some of you maybe have never monkeyed around with that, but you can target a ship and hail them and talk to that person who's in another ship as well. Communications when you're on a ship, when you're talking. If you're on your Connie and someone's in the kitchen area and you're in the front piloting the ship, you can talk to them within the ship. It is still proximity based. The further you get away from them, it starts to go away. It'll be interesting to see if they come up with a comm system that works a little bit better. So, for example, some of you may have been in the Hull C. The engineering section is way, way, way in the back of that ship. You do want to have a way so that you can communicate with comms. Maybe it'll be the mobi-glass. Maybe it's touching a panel on the ship. But it can't be proximity based because the person's so far away, you wouldn't be able to hear them. Maybe they'll make it where if you're on the ship, no matter where somebody's talking, you'll hear them. I like the proximity side of it, but on a ship, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of funny, right? Proximity has its benefits, right? Because how can I say this? a lot of people don't use it because they'll be, unless they're role playing, because if they're in Discord together, they don't have to use the game's voiceover to talk. And so, and you can hear each other no matter where you are. If you're in a bunker, somebody's on the lower level and you're in the upper level. If you're in chat together in Discord, you can hear each other. If you use the proximity based stuff though, the person downstairs, you may not hear them that well. If they're calling and saying, I need help, unless you're role playing. If you're role playing, and maybe that's the way to do it. If you want to role play, you get off Discord, you keep your communications within the game, which would make it way more challenging, extremely more challenging, and not as easy if you do that. But if it's necessary for you to use Discord, or if you just don't want to do that, or communication is that vital to you, you use Discord. There's a lot of options there. So we'll see what happens here. Let's see what we got in the chat here. Glitter bombs. Be cool if you could rank up with a few ranks from replaying it. Yep, absolutely. It releases boom 10 years. Yeah, I think it'll be faster than that, Gladestone, to be honest with you. I think once they get the first one out the door, other than maybe some innovations that they may do along the way, it's not the same as like this time where everything was being built from scratch. And just like with Starfield, they upgraded their engine. They went from creation to creation 2. They did some modifications over the years. For some people, they say they don't see the difference. Other people say they do see the difference. So I'm sure that they'll be evolving as well. But again, if the first episode of Squadron 42 comes out 1 year, is the next one going to take maybe 2 to 3 years? I think it'd be like 2 to 3 years. I don't think it'll be like a long wait, if that long at all. So, but that's just my 2 cents on it. Okay. Anyway, hey, it is that time. It is 2:02. We are 2 hours in and we got the second episode in. I'm sorry we didn't get to episode 16. We're going to do 16, 17, hopefully maybe 18 next week. But as always, thank you guys for being with me here on a Tuesday afternoon. As you guys know, I stream on Tuesdays at noon and I stream on Thursdays at noon. On Thursday, we do This Week in Star Citizen, which is kind of just like an overview of everything that's going on. Some of you guys know that there's rumors. Since I've been here streaming, I don't know if it has happened yet or not, but there were rumors that Star Citizen 3.20 might go live, and it might go live today. Maybe somebody in chat can tell me if it has gone live. I don't know if it has or not, but if it has, that's great. If it hasn't, I would tell you to keep your eyes open for it. Pardon me here. I'm trying to find somebody that we can raid. But keep an eye open for it and see if it does. And if it does go live, I hope you guys enjoy it. There's a lot of cool stuff in there that hopefully you will enjoy. We are going to set up a raid for our good friend. And this is somebody who I'm really hoping that we get to know more of. And that's Expat Brat. Those of you who've watched Expat Brat, Expat is really into role play, goes all out when it comes to their gameplay in Star Citizen. So hopefully you guys will enjoy Expat Brat. Go over there and let her know that you came over from Griff. Don't forget, Thursday night is Soul Talk with Fast Cart. This Saturday we will be doing a Soul Voices. I wasn't here last week because I was attending another wedding, but that'll be this Saturday. And then of course this Sunday on Soul Citizens we're going to be doing planetary playtime, talking about recreation and fun stuff that's going to be lined up that you can do in the persistent universe in Star Citizen. So hopefully you guys will be able to join us for that. Thank you, Admiral Kusanagi, for coming in. Thank you, as always, Kai Zen, my good buddy, for coming in and hanging out as well. All of you guys, Glade, appreciate you guys. Everybody who came in today. Prisoner, I saw you drop in. Thank you also for being here. Abdi, love you. Marzipan, Yo-Yo Meg. I'm not sure who else came in. Stunner came in. Kai Zen was here. Razzle came in. Grandiose G came in. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. And I hope you guys have a great day. And as always, take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Peace, love, and soul. We'll see you guys soon. Take care. Ciao.